You're listening to Radio NYC.
Hello, this is Commissioner Jimenez from the Mayor's Office to Combat Domestic Violence. People with disabilities are more likely to experience violence at the hands of an intimate partner. New Yorkers with disabilities should not feel alone. Support is available. In New York City, all victims of domestic violence, regardless of their language, immigration status, or disabilities, are offered services to help them regain control over their lives. If you or someone you know is being abused, please call 311 for help.
Hi, this is Dr. Tom Farley, New York City's Health Commissioner. One thing that all New Yorkers can do for their health is to know their HIV status. If you've had sex, even once, you should get tested for HIV. If you're HIV positive, you can get medical care to help you feel better and live longer. If you're HIV negative, you can stay that way. Your regular healthcare provider can give you an HIV test. Free HIV tests are also available at health department clinics in all 5 boroughs. For clinic locations and hours, call 311 or visit nyc.gov.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Bailon. Having an official ID is one of the keys to success. Want to open a bank account, apply for a job, register for college soon? You'll need an official ID to do any of these things. Don't drive? Don't worry. You can get a non-driver state ID, and it only costs about $10. But in order to get an ID, there are a few things you'll need, and we're here to help. Go to nyc.gov and click on or search ID to get started.
This is Mayor Mike Bloomberg. Remember to dial 311 for all New York City government services and information.
Hola, me llamo Ana y trabajo en el Departamento de Asuntos al Consumidor. A veces puede ser abrumador para administrar su dinero, pero los centros de poder financieros de la ciudad pueden ayudarle a tomar control brindándole asesoramiento financiero profesional, gratuito e individual, ofrecido en toda la ciudad en diferentes idiomas. Nuestros consejeros pueden ayudar a reducir su deuda, preparar un presupuesto, abrir una cuenta bancaria segura y mucho más. Visite nyc.gov para encontrar el centro más cercano o llame al 311 para pedir una cita ya.
This is Carter Strickland, Environmental Protection Commissioner for New York City. A fire hydrant is a familiar sight in the city. There are more than 109,000 of them citywide. Summer in New York can be hot, but please don't open fire hydrants to cool off unless you have an approved spray cap. Illegally opened hydrants can reduce the water pressure needed to fight fires and endanger people's lives. Instead, get a spray cap at your local firehouse or take advantage of the city's recreation centers, play streets, pools, and cooling centers. For more information on locations, call 311.
I'm Fatima Sharma, Commissioner of the New York City Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. New York City is home to people from more than 190 countries. They're our neighbors and co-workers and an essential part of the fabric that makes us the greatest city in the world. My office helps immigrants make New York City their home. In the wake of Hurricane Sandy, we continue to work to make sure that immigrant communities affected by the storm have access to services that will help them recover and rebuild their lives. To learn more, visit nyc.gov or contact 311.
You're listening to Radio NYC.
Hello, this is Allison Tachi, President of City Parks Foundation. This month, we're asking you to give back to your neighborhood parks and playgrounds on It's My Park Day. Hosted by Partnerships for Parks, It's My Park Day is a public-private partnership that brings together thousands of New Yorkers to rake, plant, clean, and paint in parks across the city. Events begin on May 4th and continue throughout the month. Visit nyc.gov to find out how you can get involved in It's My Park Day and other volunteer activities all year long.
Brooklyn Bridge Park keeps getting better. Hi, I'm Regina Meyer, President of Brooklyn Bridge Park, and we're thrilled to welcome visitors to the brand new Pier 5. Come play on our 5-acre sports field, barbecue on grills at the Picnic Peninsula, or take in the breathtaking views of Lower Manhattan from the Promenade. There's more to come later this year when the Pier 2 sports courts make their debut. Check out brooklynbridgepark.org or call 311 for further information. Can't wait to see you at the park.
Hola, yo soy Adrienne Bailón. Tener una identificación oficial puede ser clave para tu éxito. ¿Quieres abrir una cuenta bancaria? ¿Solicitar un trabajo? Vas a necesitar una identificación oficial para hacer cualquiera de estas cosas. Puedes conseguir una identificación estatal para no conductores y solo cuesta $10. Pero para conseguir una identificación hay unas cosas que vas a necesitar. Visite nyc.gov y busque ID para empezar.
I'm Rob Walsh, Commissioner of Small Business Services.
And I'm Terrence Holliday, Commissioner of the Mayor's Office of Veterans Affairs. Our veterans served our country, and we are proud to serve them.
If you're a veteran or a veteran spouse looking for a job, stop by the Workforce One Veterans Center at 60 Madison Avenue in Manhattan, or at any of the 15 centers in all 5 boroughs. We work with businesses committed to hiring veterans, which means we have jobs for you. For more information, call 311 or visit nyc.gov.
This is Mayor Mike Bloomberg. Remember to dial 311 for all New York City government services and information.
Home is the one place we all expect to be safe, but each day over 1,000 New Yorkers report an incident of domestic violence. Hello, I'm Commissioner Yolanda Jimenez of the Mayor's Office to Combat Domestic Violence. Victims and their children don't have to suffer in silence. If you or someone you know is a victim of family violence, help is available 24 hours a day in all languages by calling 311 and asking for the New York City Domestic Violence Hotline. In emergencies, call 911.
Hello, I'm Taxi and Limousine Commissioner David Yaskey. Did you know that New York City taxicabs are required by law to take passengers anywhere in the 5 boroughs, or to Westchester or Nassau County, or to Newark Airport? In fact, a driver can't even ask where you're going before they accept the trip. So if a taxi driver refuses to serve you, call 311 or visit nyc.gov with the license or medallion number. With your help, the TLC is here to make sure you get where you need to go.
Hi, I'm Rob Walsh, Commissioner of the Department of Small Business Services. Figuring out what permits and licenses are needed in order to start and expand a business in New York City can be a challenging task. That's why we created New York City Business Express. It's a free one-stop website where business owners can access the information they need to open up shop. You can apply online for many permits, settle outstanding fines, and find incentives to lower the cost of doing business. Visit nyc.gov or call 311 and ask for NYC Business Express.
This is Mayor Mike Bloomberg. Remember to dial 311 for all New York City government services and information.
Soy Iris Jiménez Hernández, vicepresidenta de HHC, su sistema de hospitales públicos. Este Día de las Madres, dele a su mamá el mejor regalo, una cita para una mamografía. En HHC ofrecemos mamografías a muy bajo costo o sin costo durante todo el año. Visite nuestro sitio web o marque el 311 para el hospital público más cercano.
Hi, this is New York City Transportation Commissioner Jeanette Sadekhan. For most New Yorkers, our 6,000 miles of streets are our front yards, so we're doing everything we can to make them as safe, attractive, and as sustainable as they can be. By keeping our roads and bridges in good repair, building new public plazas and bike lanes, we're creating world-class streets for a world-class city. Please help us keep our streets safe and smooth by calling 311 to report potholes and other traffic concerns in your neighborhood.
This is Carter Strickland, Environmental Protection Commissioner for New York City. Every day, 9 million New Yorkers rely on DEP to deliver 1 billion gallons of the world's best drinking water to their homes and businesses. Renowned for its purity and taste, our tap water comes by gravity from the Catskills, 125 miles away, making it the right choice for your health and the environment. Look for our New York City Water on the Go fountains throughout the 5 boroughs and learn more about New York City's water supply at nyc.gov. New York City Water, the right choice for the environment, your health, and your wallet. This is Carter Strickland, Environmental Protection Commissioner for New York City. Our restaurant scene is one of the best in the world, serving millions of New Yorkers and tourists every year. If you run a restaurant or food service business, remember to properly empty your grease traps. Pouring grease down the drain or into a city catch basin is illegal and can cause significant costly sewer backups. For a description of grease regulations and information regarding proper disposal methods, visit nyc.gov.
You're listening to Radio NYC.
What better way to get some outdoor exercise than rolling up your sleeves and helping care for Brooklyn's Prospect Park? Hi, I'm Emily Lloyd, president of the Prospect Park Alliance. Volunteering at Prospect Park offers many exciting ways to make a difference in the lives of all who benefit from the park. Individuals, families, students, and retirees can all have fun and learn something while helping the park. We provide the training and equipment. You decide how much time you can spare. For more information, call 311 or go online to nyc.gov, and I hope I'll see you soon in beautiful Prospect Park.
Hi, this is Sanitation Commissioner John Doherty. Please use street litter baskets for your candy wrappers, fast food containers, empty coffee cups, for everything except recyclables. Remember, never use litter baskets for garbage from your home or business. That's not what they are there for. Above all, don't litter. For more information on how you can help keep New York City clean, call 311. Let's work together to keep our streets clean.
Hi, this is Vincent Schiraldi, Commissioner at the New York City Department of Probation. Did you know that state law prohibits unfair discrimination against job applicants with a criminal conviction? Did you also know that the city has taken special steps to ensure that job applicants with a criminal conviction are treated fairly? It's true. For example, there are many job postings where city agencies are prohibited from asking about an applicant's criminal history before or during the first interview. So don't let your past define your future. Consider applying for a job with the city or one of our hundreds of partners. To find out more about what this change in policy means for you, visit nyc.gov.
Hi, I'm Rob Walsh, Commissioner of Small Business Services. If your small business was impacted by Hurricane Sandy, the city is ready to help. We have an emergency loan providing up to $25,000. We can also help businesses apply for federal assistance to up to $2 million. And there are other ways we could help. If your business has been displaced, we can set up free temporary space. And we could also assist in answering insurance questions or replace permits lost during the storm. For more information, go to nyc.gov, call 311, or visit a business solutions center located in any of the 5 boroughs.
This is Mayor Mike Bloomberg. Remember to dial 311 for all New York City government services and information.
Hi, I'm Seth Diamond, Commissioner of New York City's Department of Homeless Services. Homeless Services can connect you or someone you know who is at risk of homelessness to the DHS Home-Based Program, our one-stop for homelessness prevention, or one of our free law offices. We have over 30 service centers located in the 5 boroughs. To learn more about community-based prevention services that can help New Yorkers prevent eviction and avoid shelter, call 311 or visit nyc.gov.
Hi, I'm Deputy Mayor Carol Robles-Roman. New York City is the safest big city in the nation, and we're leading a fight against human trafficking, a terrible crime where people can be forced or tricked into working in harsh conditions, often for no pay. If you are a victim or know someone who is, call 911. For more information, call 311 or go to www.nyc.gov. Let's call an end to human trafficking.
This is Sanitation Commissioner John Doherty, reminding you to leash and pick up after your dog. Be considerate to your fellow New Yorkers when walking your dog in the street or in a park. Obey the Pooper Scooper law and avoid a $250 fine. If we all do our part, we can keep New York City clean. Remember, be a responsible pet owner and always pick up after your dog.
I'm Kate Levin, Commissioner of the Department of Cultural Affairs. New York City is the creative capital of the world. Throughout the 5 boroughs, residents and visitors benefit from an extraordinary cultural community that includes more than 700 theater and dance companies, 650 galleries and museums, 96 orchestras, 24 performing arts centers, 5 zoos, 4 botanic gardens, and 1 aquarium. So take in an exhibition, see a performance, or visit a historic site. There's something for everyone, and it's all just around the corner.
You're listening to Radio NYC.
Hello, this is Commissioner Jimenez from the Mayor's Office to Combat Domestic Violence. People with disabilities are more likely to experience violence at the hands of an intimate partner. New Yorkers with disabilities should not feel alone. Support is available. In New York City, all victims of domestic violence, regardless of their language, immigration status, or disabilities, are offered services to help them regain control over their lives. If you or someone you know is being abused, please call 311 for help.
Hi, this is Dr. Tom Farley, New York City's Health Commissioner. One thing that all New Yorkers can do for their health is to know their HIV status. If you've had sex even once, you should get tested for HIV. If you're HIV positive, you can get medical care to help you feel better and live longer. If you're HIV negative, you can stay that way. Your regular healthcare provider can give you an HIV test. Free HIV tests are also available at health department clinics in all 5 boroughs. For clinic locations and hours, call 311 or visit nyc.gov.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Bailon. Having an official ID is one of the keys to success. Want to open a bank account, apply for a job, register for college soon? You'll need an official ID to do any of these things. Don't drive? Don't worry. You can get a non-driver state ID, and it only costs about $10. But in order to get an ID, there are a few things.
I promised they were right behind me. Anybody know how to? We get somebody to. I think that'd be all right. There we go. Okay, Paul, this falls down. Do you know how to tighten that? I think I tightened it. It's okay now. I got it. I tightened. Just you tighten this, right? Okay. Well, good morning. Today, Police Commissioner Ray Kelly and I are joined by law enforcement professionals who have been instrumental in the historic 34% decrease in crime that New York City has enjoyed since 2001. A decrease we've achieved even while our police officers have maintained a dramatically lower rate of discharging their firearms than police in most other major cities have, and a drop in crime that we've also accomplished while also reducing reliance on incarceration by 31% since 2001, a decline that has bucked a contrary national trend. With us today are Queens District Attorney Richard Brown, Richmond County District Attorney Dan Donovan, and former New York County District Attorney Robert Morgenthau. Also joining us are leaders of organizations representing more than 35,000 NYPD police officers, detectives, and supervisors. These veteran law enforcement professionals are all deeply committed to protecting the safety of our city. And today, they join the police commissioner and me in urging New York City Council not to threaten all that we've achieved in making New York the safest big city in the nation. Specifically, that means the City Council must reject 2 proposed local laws that are expected to come before it this week. Intro 1080, which would permit lawsuits against the NYPD based on the, quote, disparate impact, unquote, of police practices, and Intro 1079, which would establish an independent inspector general with broad authority to investigate and weigh in on police policies and practices. Let's take a look at the real-world impact these bills would have using a recent example of the NYPD's response to crime. Earlier this month, the NYPD announced a variety of widely reported crime prevention tactics in the wake of a series of shootings during the weekend of June 1st. There was no controversy about these measures and no protests, and that's because they were what anyone would want and expect in addressing a spike in crime. For example, Commissioner Kelly ordered assignment of additional uniform officers to public housing developments citywide. That was because many of the shootings had occurred in public housing complexes, a common sense thing to do. Most people would agree. Nevertheless, under Introductory 1080, the NYPD could be sued for implementing this tactic due to a potential, quote, disparate impact, unquote, based on housing status. The commissioner also ordered, quote, personnel to focus on the 9 commands that experience multiple shootings, unquote. Again, smart, basic policing. Concentrate resources in the neighborhoods that saw the spikes in shootings. But because these were predominantly minority communities, Intro 1080 would permit lawsuits challenging this strategy as causing a potential disparate racial impact. The commissioner also directed investigators to, quote, monitor gang-affiliated street crews for any evidence of planned retaliation based on the shootings over the weekend, unquote. Again, smart policing. But Intro 1080 would permit lawsuits challenging this strategy because of a potentially disparate impact based on sex and age, since nearly all gang members are male and under 30 years old. The lawsuit would allow the lawsuits the bill would allow against the tactics of Commissioner Kelly wouldn't just cause a possible financial burden and tie up officers in court and take them off the streets. The state courts could also ban the police tactics the commissioner ordered. Think about that. The NYPD would be unable to take some of the most basic crime prevention measures anyone would expect our police to take. Okay, what about the effect of Intro 1079, the Inspector General bill? Take the monitoring of street crews that I just mentioned. Intro 1079 would allow gang members to make anonymous complaints about this to the new Inspector General. They wouldn't have to allege unnecessary use of force, abuse of authority, discourtesy, or offensive language to make a complaint. Nevertheless, the Inspector General would have to review, and the NYPD would have to dedicate time and resources to answering the gang members' anonymous complaints. In the future, any police commissioner would have to dedicate precious resources to disproving anonymous complaints about such basic fundamental police operations. And before deploying resources to neighborhoods in need, as Commissioner Kelly did earlier this month, and as he has done for the past 11 years, in the future, any police commissioner also would have to first consider the possible opinion of an Inspector General. We also ought to look at the results of the tactics the NYPD employed in response to that uptick in shootings earlier this month. During the week ending June 2nd, there were 20 shootings in the 9 precincts in question. During the week ending June 9th, however, there were a total of just 4 shootings in those same 9 precincts. Let me urge the council members who represent those districts to consider the results before voting on bills that will make quick action by a police commissioner and proactive policing by police officers extinct in our city. New Yorkers must have policing that respects everyone's rights, including everyone's right to be safe on the streets. And what we mustn't have is what these laws would create: a police department pointlessly hampered by outside intrusion and recklessly threatened by second-guessing from the courts. On that note, let me turn the floor over to the Police Commissioner, Raymond Kelly. Ray?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When you examine the track record of crime fighting of the Bloomberg administration, the numbers speak for themselves. They show us that our practices and strategies are working. You look at the double-digit reductions of crime over the last decade, the reductions of murder to its lowest levels in modern history, the fewest shooting victims since we began collecting this data 2 decades ago. The 11 years since 9/11 attacks that followed immediately after by an anthrax attack, we have not seen one New Yorker wounded or killed as a result of a terrorist attack, unlike every other decade in the past half century. Yes, we've been lucky, but we work hard to make our own luck. Now, despite repeated attempts since 9/11, terrorists have failed time and time again in plots against New York City. But take heart, Al-Qaeda wannabes, because the City Council has found a way to undermine our partners that the NYPD has carefully constructed over the past decade, partnerships with both domestic and foreign entities. Those partnerships have helped keep New York safe. Now, if you think our partners will stand idly by to a review of their own sensitive operations by an ill-conceived notion of an inspector general, think again. They will simply walk away. Thousands of New Yorkers are alive today who wouldn't be otherwise as a result of the proactive strategies of this department. So how will this impact on police officers? How will it affect our resources? Well, there are many ways, but one of the ways will be by tying police officers up in endless depositions when they should be on patrol, or consuming their time with responses to investigative requests from an inspector general. This would be a devastating diversion of police resources when we need them out on the street. Not to mention the chilling effect of the disparate impact legislation, as the mayor said. That's not to say that everyone loses, because the legislation would generate so many frivolous lawsuits that its sponsors may well have called it the Full Employment for Plaintiffs' Attorneys Act. So if you are young, you have standing to sue. If you are male, you have standing to sue. If you're in a street crew, step right up and file your notice of claim. If you live in a prime time, a high crime neighborhood, ditto. And who will pay the biggest price for this? The law-abiding residents of the city's poorest neighborhoods. Now, until this threat emerged to upend all of this progress, they have been the greatest beneficiaries of the department's crime-fighting strategies over the last decade. Compare Mayor Bloomberg's 11 years in office with the preceding 11 years, and there have been 7,364 fewer murders. That's 7,364 lives saved. And if history is any guide, those lives saved are largely the lives of young men of color. These gains have been paid for in blood, and the sacrifice of 18 police officers who gave their lives in the line of duty since 2002, together with countless other officers throughout our history. In their names, and the names of their loved ones, and in the names of every innocent victim of violent crime, we stand together today to oppose this misguided legislation. Mr. Mayor.
I didn't touch it. Let me also point out we are 1 week before the midway point in calendar 2013. Comparing the murder rate in calendar 2013, the first 6 months, to the last 4 years, we're roughly 30% lower than every single one of those years. This is after a record low murder rate never before seen since we started keeping statistics in 1963 occurred last year, and we're roughly 30% below that this year. If that doesn't give comfort to parents, I don't know what will. Parents can lose a child, and there's no bringing that child back, but the likelihood of that happen has gone down dramatically thanks to the work of the world's greatest police department. And to jeopardize the lives of the kids going forward is just, I would argue, unconscionable. Let's now hear from the distinguished prosecutors who are here today for their comments, starting with Richmond County District Attorney Dan Donovan. Dan?
Thank you very much, Mayor. The achievements that the Mayor just described, the Police Commissioner just described, didn't happen by accident. And they're doing this. The Police Commission has about 6,000 less police officers than were working at the time, the day before the tragedy, September 10th. So the remarkable achievements they've made over the years has been done with less police officers, and at that time they weren't dealing with something called terrorism. Now, I think people have good intentions. There's no one individual up here that wants anyone's civil rights violated. But there are mechanisms in our court system already that address those violations when they occur. I think the good intentions that people had in proposing legislation, they never realized the unintended consequences. The unintended consequences of this legislation is jeopardizing public safety. I read somewhere where someone was saying all these stop and frisks have produced so few guns. Well, I think that's one of the reasons for that is people are afraid to carry a gun now. Police Commissioner and I announced right in this room a while back a program on Staten Island called Cash for the Stash, because we found now a lot of people are using what we call community guns, guns that are hidden in a broken mailbox, guns that are hidden under a rock or an abandoned car, because no one wants to carry a gun any longer. Years ago, people used to carry a gun. Then when they got too dangerous for them to carry a gun, they used to give it to a juvenile. When we changed the laws addressing juvenile crime, now no one wants to carry a gun. That's because of the work, the stop, question, and frisk work that the men and women in the New York City Police Department have done. I think last year, correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner, we had about 418 murders. And the same calendar year, we had 475 suicides. More people last year killed themselves in New York City than were killed at the hands of one of their fellow citizens. That's just a remarkable number when you think about it. Not to downgrade the tragedy of suicide, but just to put it in perspective of how few homicides we've had in a city of 8.4 million people. This is not certainly a political issue. We have a district attorney who's a Democrat. I'm a Republican. We have my former boss, Robert Morgenthau here, retired district attorney who's a Democrat. Both of these men have much more seniority than me. I have much more height than they do. But it just shows you that this just goes across the whole spectrum. All of us here are concerned with the safety of the public. That's why we all took the jobs that we have. And the fear that we all have is if this legislation passes, the unintended consequences is those successes in the New York Police Department are going to be history, and we're going to go back to the way we were in the past. So I encourage all of those elected officials who have a vote this Wednesday on this legislation to reconsider, look at the unintended consequences, and please vote this legislation down. Thank you, Mayor.
Dan, thank you. During a tenure of more than 20 years, Queens District Attorney Richard Brown has made his office, I think it's fair to say, one of the most widely respected prosecutors' offices in the nation. Dick, would you say a few words?
That's good. First of all, let me thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your kind remarks. I just want to add my voice this morning to those of the Mayor and the Police Commissioner in expressing my opposition to these legislative proposals. With all due respect to their sponsors, it's my opinion that these proposals are ill-conceived, unnecessary, and unworkable. And most importantly, if they become law, they're going to undermine the police department's ability to continue to effectively carry out its critically important responsibilities. I believe that we should be extremely cautious before we take away from our police officers the tools, the flexibility, and the independence that has enabled them to make our streets so much safer. We already have in place a host of agencies that provide effective oversight and monitoring the work performed by our police officers. We don't need another level of oversight. We already clearly, under the law, prohibit racial profiling and require that our police officers have a legal basis for stopping and questioning our citizens. Our current legal system provides ample opportunity for concerns about police policy and operations to be both the subject of public debate and for judicial review in both civil and criminal proceedings. Enacting legislation that will create additional layers of oversight and new grounds for injunctive relief in the courts will neither increase public safety nor enhance public policy. To the contrary, it will only lead to redundancy, inefficiency, confusion, and, as has been pointed out, extremely costly litigation. No one's suggesting, as Dan suggested to you a few minutes ago, that we trade our constitutional rights for public safety. But by the same token, we should not sacrifice public safety by enacting unnecessary and unworkable legislation that will make it more difficult for police officers to do our job. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Dick, thank you. There we go. I'll hold it for him. Few prosecutors in our nation have had a more illustrious career than our next speaker. Former New York County District Attorney Robert Morgenthau, a real legend and somebody who has seen it all, and he's been through ups and downs in this city. He certainly has the perspective and the intellect to understand what it takes to keep our citizens, you and I, you and me, and our kids safe. Bob?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Having been around the block a couple of times, I think it may be worthwhile to talk about the long, tough, uphill fight to reduce crime in New York City, capped by 11 years of significant reduction under Mayor Bloomberg and the Police Commissioner Kelly. Shootings in the last 11 years are down by 45%. When people thought can't go any further. But when I became district attorney in 1975, there were 648 murders in Manhattan, 1,998 in the city as a whole. When I left office, there were 58 murders in Manhattan, and last year there were 414 murders in the city. But that didn't come quickly or easily. It was a result of a major effort. And let me just mention to you what it was like in the old days. When I first became DA, I went out in a surveillance van in Alphabet City, and drug dealers came up to the van, broad daylight, offered to sell me drugs with a uniformed police officer standing 20 feet away doing nothing. I told Mayor Beam about this and persuaded him to go out in an unmarked car into a high drug area, and he went out and they tried to sell the mayor drugs. That's what it was like in 1975, 1976. Going back even further, when my chief assistant, Vincent Broderick, became police commissioner, and he went out one night to survey the territory with a senior police officer, and as they were driving by, they saw a man pick up a brick and throw it through the glass window of a bar. Kept going. He said to the senior police officer, "Well, aren't you going to stop?" He said, "No, Commissioner, we don't stop for that sort of thing." So it's been a long, hard fight to get the police department where they are today, when they have the training, courage to make the necessary stops. Now, people think that there's a bright red line between a legal stop and an illegal stop. Let me just refer you to a 1976 decision, which is still the law. People v. Le Pen. In that case, there were two police officers out on radio patrol. They got a message that an informant had said there was a man in the bar, black man in the bar, wearing a red shirt and carrying a gun. Second patrol car got the same message. They went in, they saw this individual, they arrested him, took him out, carrying a gun. When it reached the Court of Appeals, the Court of Appeals, in its wisdom, said, informant of unknown reliability, suppress the search and the arrest. So that's the kind of thing that the police officers have been up against. Do I make the arrest? And then there's somebody going to say, it's illegal. It's an illegal arrest. And remember that every time you go into a bar with a man allegedly carrying a gun, you're risking your life. So that now with this new legislation, you're not only greatly adding to the burdens on the police officer on the street, our first line of defense, but you're also subjecting them to civil liability. And I personally, if I were out there and I saw somebody looking suspicious, knowing that I was risking my life every time I made him stop, knowing that I might be found having violated the law, knowing that I might be subject to civil liability, I think I'd keep walking. And that's where we were. That's where we were in the 60s and 70s. And we don't want to go back to that. But if this legislation is enacted, it's going to be a major disincentive for police officers to stop people, question them, and frisk them. And that's going to be, frankly, a disaster for the city, and that long uphill fight, which has resulted in a pretty good plateau. The city's not perfect. There's more crime now than we'd like to have in some neighborhoods, but that can be reversed, and the downhill travel will be 10 times as fast. And then somebody will say, oh, well, we got to go back, but it'll take a long time to get back to where we are. So I say to you, you're risking cop on the beat from making a decision to stop when you threaten them with civil liability and give him confusing instructions and multiple oversights. And one final thing I'd like to mention. The Center for Disease Control in Atlanta just put out a report saying that African American males are 70% more likely to die by gunfire than white males. Now, what's the city council going to do about that? That's a serious problem. That's a violation of civil rights. And this legislation will not help that. It'll hurt that effort. So if the city council wants to do something that's important, let's see how they can reduce or propose the reduction of the murder of African American males, now 70% greater than the murder of whites. See that they can't bring that 70% down. Thank you very much.
Bob, thank you. Your comments are, you come from a perspective that few people, unfortunately, particularly younger people, have. People don't remember what the city was like back when and how much better we are now. I was describing it this morning to some visitors from Brazil, Sao Paulo, where everybody that can afford it has an armed car, where everybody that can afford it has barbed wire around their homes and armed guards from 2 different services outside in case somebody can corrupt one of them. And I pointed out to the woman that in New York City, she could walk in any neighborhood in New York City during the day without looking over her shoulder, and most neighborhoods at night. That is just not a luxury, a freedom that people in a great percentage of the world have. Let us now turn to representatives of the NYPD supervisors and officers who are with us today, starting with Roy Richter, the president of the Captains Endowment Association. Roy?
Well, thank you, Mayor. It's important for our elected leaders to get involved with important issues facing society today. And unfortunately, with that, politics comes into play. So my comments are not based upon politics, but more on right and wrong. And let me just tell you a couple things. Racial profiling is wrong, and it's illegal. Quotas are wrong, and they're illegal. Everything in this bill is wrong, and it should not be passed. What do I mean by that? It's wrong to make a police officer acting in good faith, responding to a crime victim, to make him personally liable for doing nothing more than transmitting a description of a perpetrator to another officer acting in good faith, many times blocks away, and stopping that person. That should not subject an officer to a personal lawsuit. It should not put their family at risk. It should not put themselves at risk. That's what my message today is, basically to the City Council to vote no on this legislation and to keep politics out of policing. Thank you.
Roy, thank you. Next, Louis Turco. He's president of the Lieutenants Benevolent Association.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to elaborate on what Roy was just saying in regards to police officers with civil liability, you also got to take into effect that when an officer, man or woman on the street, hesitates, that's life and death. You have to be very careful when you hesitate out there. There's no timeouts. You don't get a second call at this. So if you hesitate, that puts the officers in harm's way. It puts the general public in harm's way. Civil liability may make that officer hesitate. With that, creates problems for us out there and puts us in danger. In regards to the IG bill, our officers right now have a very competent IAB division, Department Advocate division, CCRB agency, inspections throughout the commands and throughout the department, 5 district attorneys. This is unnecessary. This is unnecessary to have another agency out there when you have all these people looking at our offices. It's politics. It doesn't belong in policing. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Mullins is president of the Sergeants Benevolent Association. Ed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Listening to everyone speak, I want to go back a little bit to the late 80s. There was an individual here from Utah, Brian Watson, who was killed up, I believe, on a 6th Avenue subway. His whole family was here to see the U.S. Open. In the 90s, 6-7 precinct, female Sherry Ford. The same summer, 2 males gunned down, broad daylight, sunny day in July, 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. These times have changed, okay? The people who spoke for all of these people are all of us, the people in this building, and in so many ways, each of you, because many times we come to you to get the message out. And to change the laws now, to tie our hands now, is not speaking for these people at all. It's not. It's not happening, okay? This is political pandering at the most. I question if this wasn't a mayor's election year, if this piece of legislation would even come out. Where was the speaker? Where was the city council all these previous years? I never heard them once call up and ask about any one of the individuals I mentioned. It's not a good piece of legislation. And lastly, what we're talking about is leadership. Leadership isn't just stepping forward and giving direction. It's about making the tough decisions. It's doing the right thing even if it's unpopular. I don't understand how you can praise Commissioner Kelly all year long, want to keep him, and then want someone to watch him. It makes no sense. It's illogical. And I'll be the first to say, I've disagreed many times with him, but you have a very competent police commissioner, and you don't need someone else to watch a police commissioner. Mr. Mayor.
Ed, thank you. Next, Michael Palladino. He's president of the Detectives Endowment Association. Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I said most of what I wanted to say in my open letter today in the Daily News on page 15. But this morning I accused the City Council of being spoiled. Over the last 12 years, crime has gotten lower and lower in the neighborhoods that they represent. And they've enjoyed that low crime because it makes life a lot easier for them in the end to do a budget with the mayor. So I think that crime has nowhere to go but up. But what I'd like to say this morning is that this legislation is very dangerous because, no matter how many times you read it, and I've read it thoroughly quite a few times, it creates this presumption. And when you create a presumption, what you're saying is the police are guilty of bias-based profiling, and then the burden of proof rests on the police officer or officers and the agency to rebut that presumption of guilt in a court of law. So I don't quite frankly know how the police, or no matter what business you're in, how you can operate effectively and efficiently when you're threatened with doing your basic job function and then ending up being the subject of a lawsuit. So I certainly, am urging the City Council to reconsider their position to either withdraw the legislation or at the very least, let's delay any action on the legislation. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Patrick Lynch. He is president of the Patrolmen's Benevolent Association. Patrick?
When you think of these bills, and after listening to D.A. Morgenthau speak, the thing that comes to mind is been there, done that. The City Council should not be taking their time passing laws that are unnecessary. There's laws on the book that address each one of their perceived concerns. The most dangerous thing a police officer can face on the street is doubt in his or her decision. Response time and instinct is what keeps us alive. This law will make the streets more violent for the members of our communities, and it will absolutely make it more dangerous for our police officers. And it's not being dramatic when we say, in good times, unfortunately, many times we have to shoulder a brother or sister police officer and carry them into our religious institution. This multiplies that danger tenfold. The City Council should reconsider. It should focus on what needs to be done in this city. It should also be out there supporting its police officers as our communities do each and every day. Putting doubt in our minds is dangerous. Passing laws that are unnecessary are a waste of time for the city. City Council should rethink these bills.
Patrick, thank you. Let me just remind everybody, as I started out, this is a police department that fires their firearms dramatically fewer times per capita than any other major city. This is a city where we incarcerate a third fewer people than most cities do. And the trends are going in the wrong direction elsewhere in the country, but in this direction, they're all going in the right direction. Crime, murder continues to go down. Yes, we have a problem. It is our young male kids that are described by witnesses and victims as committing crime, and certainly it is our young male citizens that show up in the morgue. We have to do something about that problem. But one of the things we have done is we've kept 7,300 of them alive that would have otherwise been dead by reducing the number of people that are carrying guns, by supporting our police officers so they can make intelligent, spur-of-the-moment, life-threatening and life-saving decisions. That's why we've been able to have the greatest police department in the world, and that's why we continue to attract the best and the brightest to join our police department. But we cannot leave them in a situation, or the commissioner in the situation, where there are questions about who's in charge. No organization can function that way, particularly one where people's lives are on the line. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, but before we take some questions, let me just remind everyone that the National Weather Service has issued a heat advisory for New York City from today through 6 p.m. tomorrow, and on both days the heat index is expected to exceed 95 degrees. These conditions can be dangerous, especially for those without air conditioning, the elderly, and those with chronic health conditions. So in response, we have opened more than 400 cooling centers throughout the city for those needing relief from the heat, for their locations and hours. And for more information on avoiding heat-related illnesses, you can go to nyc.gov or call 311. Just don't try to exercise in the hot sun. Drink a lot of water, wear light clothing, and it would be very nice and make a lot of sense to today and tomorrow check in on family, friends, and neighbors, particularly the elderly and the infirm, to make sure they are okay. Before taking questions, let me just summarize today's announcement in Spanish. Estamos aquí para pedirles el Consejo Municipal que rechazan los dos proyectos de ley que harán más difícil el trabajo de prevenir crímenes y mantener a nuestra ciudad segura. And with that, we'll be happy to take a few questions if anybody has any. Yes, sir. Please identify yourself for each. I think that the job of elected officials is to lead from the front, to have policies and pass laws that make sense, and then explain it to the public. You don't go and, if you phrase a question, would you like or not like something, you don't get the same answers. I can tell you from my personal experience and from every poll I've ever seen where you ask the question, do you want to be safe? Do you want your kids to be safe? All of them say yes. And it is up to the considered opinion of the professionals that the ways to do it is the ways the role model for this country in policing, the NYPD, does it. If you take a look at these other cities, we have a murder rate of roughly 5 per 100,000. Detroit has 50 per 100,000. Chicago, Philadelphia, they'd be in 15 per capita, 3 or 4 times what we have. I don't think there's any question what works. We've gotten now 10 or 11 years of experience in how to bring crime down, and the results are just incontrovertible. Yes, Miss? Do you have a... Yes, Miss? I have no idea whether that's true or not. You don't know until the vote is taken. What is your question? I'm sorry.
If they do, has the administration thought of or investigated other avenues?
My hope is that the City Council will listen to what was said today, will take a look at the numbers, will understand the perspective and the judgment and the experience of 3 district attorneys and the leaders of all of the brave men and women who work for the NYPD, and we'll listen very carefully to the best police commissioner the city has ever had and his experiences and how he has brought down crime, and that they will not vote either of these bills. Yes, Miss? Well, any calls that I've had with anybody will remain private, but I think we have been clear from day one. We think these are both ill-considered bills which would put the public and our police officers in real serious danger and could reverse the striking, dramatic, and wonderful reduction in crime that this city has experienced over the last 10 years or 20 years. Yes, in the back, sir. That's what this bill was, one of the bills would allow. Well, because today you have to identify yourself if you're going to make a complaint, and you have to have some substance, and we can decide if you just say, oh, I don't like that guy in my neighborhood, that's unfortunately may very well be true, but we're not going to divert our resources to that. You cannot have people who believe in something but aren't willing to put their names on it stand up and make a complaint. We have a system of laws. We have to protect people who are assumed innocent until they are found guilty, and that doesn't exactly go in that direction. Yes, Miss? I think it was Ed. Did you say those? I can't. I don't know what goes through people's minds. All I know is if you talk to all of the professionals, they say that these bills are ill-advised and would seriously hamper the ability of the police department to do its work and to keep reducing crime. And I know there are some people and there are some editors that don't believe that, but if you take a look, their credentials in terms of real law enforcement and knowing what goes on in the streets are slim, skimpy, or non-existent. It's one thing to sit and write some books and think you're an expert on crime. Go out there where your life is on the line every day and do it for 20 or 30 years and see the perspective that you would have after that. Yes, sir.
Did you invite to this event here today the current city attorneys from Brooklyn?
I believe we invited all of them. Some might have had scheduling problems. Yes, in the back, sir.
For the mayor, Michael Howard Caldwell, the journal for the mayor and the police commissioner, do you agree with one of the union leaders who said at the press conference that it's logical for the mayoral candidate to say that she wants to keep Ray Kelly as police commissioner, but
We're not going to get involved in the mayor's race. That's just not what this is all about. Our views, I think both the commissioner and my views are clear that this is both ill-thought pieces of legislation. Do you want to add anything? Yes, sir. Yeah. We've talked to all of the members of the City Council, or I think we've reached out to all of them and expressed our views clearly, and I stand by our statements. The young lady behind you. There's no ways to tell other than it would be a field day. Every tort lawyer is going to buy a new house and a new car right away. They don't have to wait even for the cases to come in. Yes, sir. Well, we're going to have to take a hard look, and we obviously think about this. There's just no question that our police officers are going to get tied up doing responses to mostly baseless allegations, and they won't be on the streets. And there's just no question that our police officers are going to have to worry about who's got their backs and who they report to. And what do you do if an IG wants to go left and the police commissioner wants to go right? This is not a game. This is life-threatening things. Yes, sir.
one of the speakers mentioned that danger posed by guns and national debate over guns when legislators did not vote the way that you had advocated for. You spent money to oppose them. Would you do the same here in districts that council members who don't vote?
Well, if the legislation is going to be voted on in the next day or so, it's you don't spend money afterwards. But I feel very strongly my job is to keep this city safe. Life expectancy is close to 3 years greater than it was when we came into office, and close to 3 years greater than the national average. And a reduction in the murder rate is one of the things that goes into that. And you just have to compare our murder rate to other big cities, and you shake your heads at. We'd become the laughing stock of the country and the world if we had something that really worked and we turned it around. And what are you going to say at the next eulogy you have to give after these bills are passed, when the family is 100% convinced that had you not passed this bill, that their child would still be alive? I'd like to see if some of the city council people that vote for the bill, and maybe none of them will after listening to us, I hope that's the case, what would they say? Yes, miss? Well, number one, the first thing to do is to make sure that we don't do anything wrong. That's our first focus. And after that, everything else pales. We do not racial profile. We are not homophobic. We go where the crimes are reported, and we look for people that, as based on a description from a witness or the victim. And anybody that feels that they are unfairly picked upon has plenty of roads to present a complaint, and they are taken seriously, and we investigate every single one of them. But it's no question that most of the crime in this city is in a handful of neighborhoods, and unfortunately, the rap sheets, if you will, are long, and the descriptions of the perps are tragically similar one to another. Yes?
Is your understanding of the Bill 1080 for those who file discrimination claims and no monetary damage? And also your reaction, is it also accurate to the FBI as the equivalent of the Inspector General?
The FBI isn't an organization that's on the streets every day. We have 35,000 people on the streets of this city. Uniform people. We have another 20,000 that work for the police department, keeping us safe. And it's a very different kind of policing with a very different objective. And I think we know exactly what we're doing, and I have no idea whether the FBI is happy with it or not. But I can just tell you that if you take a look at the results of this police department, I'd be hard-pressed to find any other law enforcement agency that could point to a success like this. The gentleman behind you. It doesn't matter if I spend all my time in court and in the police station writing up descriptions or whatever I do instead of being out in the streets. There's not going to be anybody out in the streets to protect you. This is a very personal thing for you and your family. We need our cops on the streets, and we need to protect them when they make rational decisions that they have to on the spur of the moment. It's very nice to have a lawyer and everybody afterwards, you should have done this and you should have done that. But when the other guy maybe has a gun in their pocket, that's a different story. Yes, behind you.
Thank you, Mayor. James Ford from WKIS Channel 11. Clearly, racial profiling is an issue, and you are responding with a panel of esteemed, good, respected, strong, white men. Do you see this presentation as possibly backfiring in some way, sir?
Why would it backfire? You're safer when you go out on the street. And if you take a look at who is killed on the streets and whose lives we've saved, this is clearly a societal problem that most of the crime is concentrated in a handful of neighborhoods. And there's no question that if you go and take a look in our jails and you go and take a look at the descriptions of witnesses and victims, that we have a big societal problem. And we have to work on that. We have to improve our schools. We have to do a lot of things, have after-school programs. We have to work with families. But the first and foremost thing is we've got to get guns off the streets. And the place where the guns are and where the criminals are in a handful of neighborhoods. And unfortunately, the descriptions have a great deal of similarity. It is a societal problem, but not the police department. This is not the organization that's supposed to fix that. The police department is supposed to go where the crime is and go after the people that the witnesses and victims describe. And if we can find them, then it's up to the district attorneys to prosecute them and to find ways to either resurrect their lives or to put them away where they can no longer kill anybody else. We'll take one more question. Yes, sir. Okay. I'm sorry, but this is, I know you need a program. This is life and death we're talking about. Yes, the young lady in the back. Any other on topics? Yes, sir. Yes, there is. It's called the mayor. Those policies that the police commissioner implements are done with the mayor. The police commissioner in our city works for the mayor, serves at the pleasure of the mayor. And I can just tell you, I'm not a professional in this, but every single policy that this police department has, the police commissioner has explained to me, kept me posted on it, and when I talk to other experts, I'm convinced they are exactly the right thing, that they are fair, they are consistent with the law, and it's hard to argue with the results. Last question on topic back there.
You mentioned how important it is to have police on the streets and not have them tied up in court.
Yes.
I was wondering if why that reasoning didn't lead you to increase the size of the police force during
Because we just don't have the money. Which teachers would you like us to lay off and to have more cops? Just tell me, give me a list of the names of the teachers you want to lay off, because it's one or the other. Or firefighters, or people that that collect the taxes, or people that do everything in the city. The public is only willing to pay a certain amount of taxes. You don't live in a world where you can just spend as much money. And I might point out, we did reduce the size of the police department through attrition, and crime has continued to come down virtually every single year. It is so low today. If I had suggested to you when we came into office, January 1st, 2002, that we would be sitting here today with the possibility of having 300 and something murders, down from 600 and something murders, down from 2,300 murders, you would have laughed me out of the room. And yet, in fact, that is exactly the direction we are going. We'll take one or two other topic questions. Yes, sir. Miss first. I saw you first. I don't see how you can ever run any company or any organization or any government unless everybody speaks the same language. And in America, in New York, I think it's fair to say that a majority of the people speak English, and so that's the language that we have to communicate in. This is life and death. This isn't playing some game of promoting one set of stories for a newspaper. Everybody has to be able to understand the same commands instantly and go in the direction that they're ordered to go when lives are on the line. Yes, sir.
What are the advantages of using surveillance cameras when fighting crimes, and what would you say to people who say their privacy is compromised as a result of those cameras?
Every time it's polled, surveillance cameras are at least 80% approved by the public. Your question is, the first question is?
What are the advantages of using them when fighting crime?
Well, they're self-evident. Obviously, we think they act as a deterrent. We put signs up that says NYPD surveillance cameras. And also it helps us immeasurably in helping give us information to arrest people who have committed crimes. So, I mean, for us, it's a no-brainer, and we're going to continue to expand our use of cameras.
What about privacy?
As I say, it's, look, you go back to a 1968 Supreme Court decision. Arthur Goldberg said there's no expectation of privacy in the public sector, in the public arena. Every time it's polled, people, over 80% say they're not concerned about it. So I think it's an old issue.
And let me point out that the two guys that killed and maimed so many people in Boston were caught because of surveillance cameras. And who knows what they would have done elsewhere. In fact, they may have been coming to New York. There's an allegation of that. Yes, sir. Controversy what in the Bronx? No, sir. There's controversy out in the Bronx all the time. It's New York. What's their problem? I don't remember. Why are they marching? We certainly have. We have an awful lot of buildings, and we fix them up and replace them as fast as we can. Unfortunately, we don't have this unlimited budget. Anything else? I think that's enough. Thank you very much.
Hold on. Hey, nice job. Thank you. Right here. Thanks, Ryan. Good stuff. Thanks.
Ray, you need anything else?
You were great. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you.
All right. Good to see you, Eddie. Good to see you. Need anything else on the way?
Hey.
Judge? Yeah, I'm fine. Should have left with more of you. Patty?
Good seeing you, Judge. Always seeing you.
Good to be seen.
Bye. Good day.
Good. Raphael?
Thank you.
Hey, Bob.
Thank you. Listen, mark it in the book, one for red. Put a little check mark.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Now you gotta draw down on that.
Listen, I'm calling you tomorrow, all right?
Hey. Look, we have to do more with less.